Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Welcome to our weekly Westchester update. This is Monday, March 7th, and we're very happy that you're with us for a bit as we update you on a number of different issues of things that are happening around Westchester County. We have as our guest today the mayor of the city of Mount Vernon, the Honorable Shawyn Patterson-Howard, who will be with us at the podium in a few seconds. As you know, in each of these updates, we invite one of our top elected officials of one of our various municipalities to join us and talk about what's happening in their community so you have an idea of the mosaic of what comprises all of Westchester. We'll obviously give an update on COVID issues and a few other issues that we hope will be helpful, and we'll be joined in a few minutes by Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins. And we also have special presentation to those from the American Red Cross chapter here in Westchester County, Westchester Fairfield County, who've done an exemplary job for us, and we want to recognize them publicly for the work that they've done. I begin, however, by noting sadly that the 2-year anniversary of COVID, which we talked about in a press conference last week, cost us so many things that were part of our normal life. And one of the things that was unhappy for me as a basketball fan was the inability to use the Westchester County Center as the home for boys and girls championship rounds of high school basketball. You may recall that that was the traditional place for the Section 1 finals to be held. And unfortunately, after 2017, 2018, that period of time, Section 1 moved out of the county center. We tried very hard when we became a new administration to bring them back in. We finally had success in February of 2020. They played the finals at the county center where they belong, in my opinion. And then right afterwards, COVID came, and the county center now has been used for the last 2 years as a place for health care, for vaccinations, for testing, and so forth, which meant that when they had the tournament and we had champions crowned, they weren't crowned on our court in the county. And that particularly matters to me because Mount Vernon High School Knights, the high school basketball team, won the Class AA Section 1 Boys Championship. And I'd love to say once again, it is not every year that Mount Vernon wins, but as a graduate of Mount Vernon High School, dare I say class of 1970, we've had more than our share of success. And in many schools where football is king, in Mount Vernon, basketball is king. And once again, the Kings have been crowned with their victory over North Rockland by 20 points. We also want to congratulate some of the other section winners in various other classes. Bronxville won their class in Section 1. Hamilton, Class C, and Greenburgh Northcastle in Class D, and in the girls, Tuckahoe in Class C. Those are all Westchester schools. There were some schools from outside of Westchester that won in other classes, both girls and boys. And of course, anytime we talk about basketball, anytime we talk about my hometown, there's always a great sense of pride. I'm a proud resident of the city of Rye for the last 37 years, and I was a proud youth growing up in the city of Mount Vernon for the first 25 of those years, before those years. And we have with us the mayor of the city of Mount Vernon, who has been on the job for a little over 2 years. There are challenges in a city the size and density of Mount Vernon, and she has tackled them straightforwardly. And as we do with all of our mayors and supervisors that join us here, we want her to give us an update of the things she's working on, the priority issues, and hopefully how we're going to see a brighter day, in this case, in the city of Mount Vernon. So without any further conversation, the mayor of the city of Mount Vernon, the Honorable Shawyn Patterson-Howard. Madam Mayor, welcome. Glad to have you back here at the county.
Glad to be here with the County Executive Latimer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you always for your support. Good afternoon, everyone. As the County Executive said, my name is Mayor Shawyn Patterson-Howard, City of Mount Vernon. And yes, over this weekend, just on Sunday, yesterday, the Mount Vernon High School Knights won the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Section 1 AA Championship over North Rockland. I want to give a special shout out to our Mount Vernon High School Knights and our coach Semino. They've had an incredibly undefeated season this year, and so they went undefeated. On tomorrow, Tuesday, we will be traveling up to Kingston, New York to play Newburgh, I believe Newburgh, and then we will be looking forward with a victory. We'll be looking forward to a victory so that we can travel all the way upstate for the state championship. So also a special shout out to the conference tournament MVP Elijah Morris. Elijah Morris won the MVP for the entire tournament for 1AA, and he is a Mount Vernon High School Knight. So some of the things that are going on in Mount Vernon, these started off as COVID updates. And so we've been working with the county since COVID began, and during this last, phase, or what do you call it, phase of COVID, the county gave the city of Mount Vernon over 12,000 test kits, and we've been able to continuously distribute them, especially to some of our most vulnerable residents. We are seeing decreasing COVID numbers right now and expansion of testing and vaccine sites in the city of Mount Vernon. We continue to partner with the Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center, which is a federally qualified health center, Grace Baptist Church, and Montefiore Hospital. Those organizations coming together with the city, with the school district. We've seen our vaccination rates in Mount Vernon increase to about 80%. And while that may not be exciting for other communities, for Mount Vernon, it is absolutely very exciting. At the peak of Omicron, we saw 6,000 plus cases in Mount Vernon. Now, that absolutely outdistanced what we ever saw from Delta and the initial COVID that came out in March of 2020. And it's really, right now, we're at less than 100 cases, less than 100 active cases. We have reopened City Hall fully. We've done that a long time ago, but we have let go of our mask mandate. And so we've reduced and eliminated the mask mandate in city-owned properties in the city of Mount Vernon. And we, encourage those who want to continue to wear their masks to do so. As we pivot, as we're looking to pivot, my 2 years in office have been so much about COVID and kind of dealing with crisis intervention. And right now we're really looking to pivot. So we're excited to work continuously with the county around Memorial Field. It is great to see the stands rising up out of the ground, the different buildings, whether it is for what do you call those? The locker rooms, the concession stands, the ticket booths. You see the outline of the football field, soccer and lacrosse field, all of the different walls. We know where the tennis courts are going to be. And I think if we put a toll road in Best Buy parking lot or Target parking lot, we could probably make a lot of money to fund this project, because the residents continue to go up the ramp to the top of those parking lots so they can get a really true view of what Memorial Field is looking like. So we're excited, and we're looking for Memorial Field to open, in the next several months, sometime in the fall. We're looking forward to that. One of the other things that we're doing is we have been working with Westchester County, with the FBI, with the ATF, and lots of our other partners, along with the Mount Vernon Police Department leading the way. And just as you've seen a decrease in Westchester County in crime, we've seen a decrease in Mount Vernon in crime. We did have our first homicide of the year that happened late Friday night. We are pleased to announce that the individual who perpetrated that crime has been arrested and arraigned this morning. And so we, while you never want a homicide, to be able to give the family kind of the peace of knowing that the assailant has been captured, and our prayers and our thoughts go out to the family. Some of the other things that we're working on right now in the city of Mount Vernon, and we're excited, like I said, as we're pivoting from COVID, we're really focusing right now on our economic development. 3 weeks ago, we hired a new planning commissioner, so this is the first time in our administration that we've been able to bring in a planning commissioner, and within the next month, we will be looking forward to really kicking off our comprehensive plan for the city of Mount Vernon. The last time we had an executed comprehensive plan was in the great year of my birth, which was 1968. And so as I'm getting ready to turn 54, we're looking to turn the clock on that and make sure that Mount Vernon is moving forward in a way that is strategic, that is equitable, and that is smart for our residents, for our businesses, and increases the economic base of the city of Mount Vernon. So we want to welcome James Rouse as our planning commissioner. Continuing in the vein of economic development, we've also brought on just last week Miss Andrea Haynes, and she will work with us as our director of economic development, empowerment, and equity. Doing so much. We've seen so many of our businesses were hit by COVID, and we want to make sure that we are helping our businesses businesses gain access to capital, helping them understand, marketing and so many things that they did not necessarily have to deal with before COVID. But in a new environment where we're doing business in a different way, we want to expand the capacity of our businesses, continue to work with the county around the Catalyst program and making sure that we're supporting entrepreneurs and working with our Chamber of Commerce and our different merchants association to expand business opportunities. Some of the other things that we're doing in the city of Mount Vernon in the area of economic empowerment, we will be releasing within the next 2 weeks the applications for the very long-awaited Mayors for Guaranteed Income, where we will be working with families in the city of Mount Vernon. We've increased the number using our American Rescue Plan monies to 200 families. We will be providing and working with 200 families and giving them $500 a month. Now, that's $6,000 a year, and we're not saying they have to use it for rent or for food, but they're using it to make the best decisions that they need for their families. For some, it will be child care. For others, it will be transportation. For some, it will be rent, but it gives a breather to so many families, especially in this time of recession, not recession, inflation, really, where prices are going up, that can help them fill that margin and that gap. And we will continue to expand our workforce training opportunities because we know as prices go up, we need to make sure that our residents are marketable and able to secure so many of these jobs that are coming on the horizon. We continuously see the unemployment rates go down, and we want to make sure our residents are competitive and that they're able to get some of these living wage and high-skilled, high-tech jobs that we know are becoming a greater part of the job market. So we're just excited about the future of Mount Vernon, and as you announced last week, that the Reginald A. Lafayette County Office Building, that's something that we're excited. Mr. Lafayette was, of course, the chairman of our local Democratic committee, and he worked in so many different ways in the county. And so we're looking forward to that being fully executed and the day that that ribbon cutting will come. And last but not least, infrastructure. So in the city of Mount Vernon, we're continuing to have great conversations with the county of Westchester and the state of New York as to how we can really come up with comprehensive sewage and stormwater solutions, as well as, eliminating lead pipes. We continuously hear all throughout the country that these are things that are being done, and I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. and speak with the head of the EPA, as well as Mr. Mitch Landrieu, who's the former mayor of New Orleans, who's overseeing the infrastructure bill. And last week we had engineering firms come from around the country and do walkthroughs through the city of Mount Vernon with us, looking at our bridges, looking at our municipal parking lots, having discussions about our sewer, our stormwater, and our freshwater systems, and making sure that Mount Vernon is primed and ready to secure some of that $1.7 trillion that is out there for infrastructure. And so we are planning because we want to make sure that the foundation of Mount Vernon is solid for the next 100 years so that any economic development that we're doing is based on a strong foundation. So I just want to thank my team. I have a great team in the city of Mount Vernon. We're continuing to add to that team. The elected team, again, really, really great communication, and we're working collaboratively to find solutions for the city of Mount Vernon. So thank you for being a partner with Mount Vernon. We want to thank not only the county executive, but the county board of legislators, because it has been a great partnership, and this is what government is supposed to look like. Government is supposed to be boring. When we're doing our job every day, it's supposed to be boring, and we're excited that our residents are tapping in and paying attention to the community meetings, and we just look forward. We are hiring a director of constituent services as well in the city of Mount Vernon, which will be a new position, and that director will be reaching out, and we'll be having some meetings going forward with the clergy, with the business community, the not-for-profit community, the neighborhood associations, and just all of the sectors, making sure that the residents of Mount Vernon are updated and informed. But then we also have a formal vehicle for getting their input so that as we look for solutions, that the solutions are based on data, as well as we're responding to the needs and the concerns of our constituents. So everyone, thank you so much. God bless, and continue to do the incredible work that you're doing here in the county of Westchester. Take care.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That's Mayor Shawyn Patterson-Howard, Mayor of the City of Mount Vernon. And she used the word that we use often in our dialogue here in county government and in our executive branch and in the legislative branch, which is partnerships, that we work closely together with municipal governments, with school districts, with other levels of government, with the not-for-profit community, with the corporate community, with the clergy, and all of these different things, because we see that no one of these elements in the society can accomplish all the things that are possible. But if we can do that cooperatively, we can, and we do that across the aisle. And of course, our partnership with Mount Vernon has been extensive. A number of things that we have worked on, Memorial Field right now. We are currently covering the Industrial Development Agency function for the city of Mount Vernon. At some point in time, they'll be in a position to take back that function and giving them more direct control over that development. We work closely with them. The mayor mentioned the sewer project that's ahead. It's a major capital project for which the county will be working through the state direction on assisting getting those sewer pipes back up to the proper level. So all of these things are possible with that cooperation. Again, we thank you for your cooperation, Madam Mayor, and the members of your team. Very important to us. And, you know, these things aren't limited just to Mount Vernon. Last Friday, Ken Jenkins, myself, and members of our team traveled to the town of Somers in the northern border, and we met with Supervisor Robert Scarano and some members of his team as deputy supervisor, and we talked about some of the issues that link the county government with the town of Somers, the Lasden Estate, Muscoot Farm, what we do with police coordination and work, issues that relate to water from east of Hudson River, issues of affordable housing, and on and on. And these conversations are across party lines. It's not just because we're all in the same political party. Last week, Warren Lucas was here as the town supervisor, and we spoke about those cooperative efforts. So I think it's a different philosophy in this particular administration. This is the fifth year of our administration, and every administration defines their opportunities the way they do. We define it with inclusion and coordination and cooperation. And we don't have to agree on everything. You know, when you get together with your family, extended cousins and uncles, I bet not everybody at the Thanksgiving table agrees on things either. But we have a way of working together. We think that's in the best interest of the residents of this county, the taxpayers of this county, and that's what we're trying to do. As the weeks go along, we'll have other chief electeds join us here. We'll talk about issues that are specific to those communities, and we look forward to having that update. So again, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Ken Jenkins will join me here. We'll do our COVID update, and which the news is very good. We're seeing now a continuation of the downward trend. I think we can declaratively say that the Omicron variant surge is over, and we're now at a level of infection that is much more manageable. We have, over the course of the last two and a half weeks, a steady diminution in active cases. We are now down to less than 1,000 cases, and 1,000 cases or 800 cases, 700 cases may be about as low as it can ever get, because you're speaking of 10 consecutive nights, and if you had 70 people test positive on a given day for COVID, that was a fairly small number, small percentage of people, that would still generate at any point in time 700 active cases over that 10-day period. So the fact that we're under 1,000, have been over the last week, is a good sign. And if you compare it from week to week, if you look at our numbers from March the 5th, where we have 878 active cases on March the 5th, go back to February 5th, where we had 3,750 cases, 3,750 down to 878. That's a great drop. And the 3,000 cases we had a month ago was a fraction of the 36,000 that we had back in January. So those are good news numbers. The number of people hospitalized at our most recent count, 54. A month ago, 237. So the severity of the disease and the impact of the disease much less. And if you go back to the week that tracks a month ago, that whole week period of time, we lost a total of 21 people to COVID. In the last week, we've lost 3. And in fact, we've gone 4 consecutive nights without an additional fatality. That number, I hope, freezes at that number and stays that way, for the rest of time. But we're encouraged that the fatality numbers are down, the hospitalization numbers are down, the active case numbers are down, and these are the reasons by which the mandates that were implemented by the state have been lifted, and they include lifting mask mandates in schools. That was a state mandate, not a county mandate. We've seen that we still want to continue our efforts in vaccinations. Ken's going to talk about satellites in a second, and we want to make sure the third shot, the AKA booster shot, is taken by everybody who's had the first 2 shots, protect you all the more. and then also the pediatric vaccination shots for young people, and we can do that tied around schools. We had a meeting, as we do every Monday morning, with the various representatives of school superintendents around the county. There are 44 school districts in Westchester. We probably have about half that number on a weekly call every Monday morning at 8:30. And we have reached a point in our relationship with the districts that they don't need to see us each week, that we've helped to address some of the major issues. We've been doing this literally to the day, 2 years to the day from when we first began our efforts with schools. Keeping in mind that the county government is not the direct line of report from school districts. Usually school districts report directly to the state education department, and the county is sort of a sideshow in those things. But because of the county health function through our health department, we became partners with the school districts to help them comply on the various mandates that came out of the state, sometimes to help interpret those mandates, and then to serve alongside state legislators as lobbyists with the state executive branch for certain policies that the school districts thought would be more practical. And the good news is that the outbreaks that we fear happening in the schools did not happen. We've stayed relatively COVID-free, and that is very good news for all of us. But the important thing to recognize is that the responsibility to do some of these things was not structurally the county's responsibility, but we took them on because we are friends and we are neighbors, and we want to try to show leadership, not just by being out there on the promontory point all by ourselves, but to build that type of relationship that we just spoke to a second ago in terms of local governments working together. We were able to help schools receive testing materials. We were able to help schools get KN95 masks. We gave them public information and flyers and PSAs that would help with masking for children, set up vaccination clinics quite extensively. We vaccinated teachers as part of a conscious effort when the vaccinations first came out, and then to make them available for young students once that came out. And we did all of these things, not because we're tasked to do it by mandate, but because it is the right thing to do. And when we see the diminution of the infection now, we can look and say, this is what happens if you pursue the right paths. And I have to highlight, we did very little mandating of anything in all of this. We had a mandate inside our county office buildings with masks. Other than that, we took the attitude that intelligent people, if given the opportunity to, quote unquote, do the right thing here in Westchester County, they would do it. And that's why we have consistently ranked ahead of the neighboring counties around us in the semicircle from Dutchess and Ulster counties all the way around through Rockland and the Bronx. And we're very proud, not because of the county government we're proud because the people of Westchester responded to these initiatives. We are not finished with COVID, however. We'd be foolish to act as if this is over. At some level, we're going to be dealing with COVID every day for the rest of our lives, but in a manageable way that we think will be intelligent. And that does involve testing, and it does involve vaccinations. So I'm going to ask our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, to go over some of those planned efforts on both testing and vaccination. Ken.
Thanks, George. And again, to highlight what the county executive has been pointing out is all of these efforts because of his leadership in making sure to do this. And again, 2 years to the date today. But he forgot to mention the meeting that we had, which was probably a little contentious on the very first day with all the superintendents, that was convened by Superintendent Joe Ricca from White Plains, who was the head of that group. Now Jen Lamia is. And again, that's a testament to the kind of work that's being done. The county center is in that particular role, and with testing, free testing is still available at the county center in White Plains for symptomatic members of the community with a known exposure to a confirmed positive case. And we know what that means now. That means that you were in that particular range. In the old days, you might have gotten contact traced to say that, but you were within 6 feet of someone for 10 minutes or more cumulative. It could have been 1 minute, 10 times a day, or whatever things that is. That's a confirmed positive case. And now we have opened up to those who wish to get tested for any other reason. So the CDC recommends being tested 5 to 7 days after an exposure. We know that we learned that very well in the beginning of this particular crisis with the people getting tested way too soon, and then the virus incubating after that. The CDC, again, recommending testing 5 to 7 days after an exposure. Appointments are encouraged, but walk-ins are welcome. Keep in mind, again, that we do vaccinations and testing. We don't do them at the same time at the county center. Again, hours for operations, Mondays and Tuesdays, 8 to 4, Wednesdays, 8 to 12, Thursdays, 8 to 2, and Fridays at 8 to 12 noon. Again, not on the weekends and not on holidays for that testing available at the county center. And again, this is a big difference from when we were talking earlier, the county executive pointing out where there was tremendous amount of cases in Westchester County and no availability for testing. That's been leveled off. And now we're looking forward to continuing to live with the pandemic, or an endemic now. The county center is also for those vaccinations for our young folks, 5 and up. You got to make an appointment for that from the Department of Health website. I'm sure it's on the bottom of the screen right now. In addition to that, you must, if you have a young person, that means under 18, that they have to have a parent or guardian with them for those vaccinations. And I know that some of our young folks that are 16 and over feel like, I can drive the car, so why can't I get a vaccination? That's not how it is. You need to have that parent or guardian with you to sign off on the vaccinations 5 and up. The vaccine satellite locations for this week. This is a little bit different than we've had in the past. These are all second doses and boosters. So whether it's in Portchester at the John F. Kennedy Elementary School gym today, that's from 3:30 to 6:30, just in a little bit of time, or in Peekskill at the Peekskill Family Resource Center tomorrow, again, same time, 3 to 6:30, and Wednesday in Sleepy Hollow at Sleepy Hollow Middle School, again, from 3 to 6:30. A little bit different. Some of them have been acting and having walk-ins available for people, but this is second doses and boosters at all of those schools. Again, Thursday and Friday, we're going to continue our pediatric clinics from 3:30 to 6:30 at the county center, and that's on Friday, 2:30 to 6. So once again, we're going to continue all of these satellite locations next week, just to give people a heads up. Again, in Pelham, on Monday, the 14th, from 3 to 6:30 p.m. That's going to be in Pelham at the Hutchinson Elementary School, and in New Rochelle at Hope Community Center on Tuesday, the 15th, from 2 to 6:30. County executive has said so much, and has said this for all of the time, that Westchester residents even would go up to Potsdam to be able to get a vaccination. Because of that level, more than 95% of the people in Westchester County have had at least one shot, and that is why we need to continue to make sure that we're best protected as possible to continue on and be able to move forward in this. So that the vaccines are helpful to make sure that you can keep out of the hospital and make sure that we don't have death we can prevent as best as possible. So please get those vaccinations. Make sure you get boosted, or as the county executive says, your full regimen, whether that is a 2-shot regimen if you had Johnson & Johnson, or a 3-shot regimen for anyone else, Moderna or for Pfizer. Thanks so much, George.
Now, next, we'd like to recognize that we always try to take into account certain national days that are established to recognize organizations and entities. We'll make a reference for one of our ethnic organizations a little bit later in the broadcast. But in this particular case, March has also been designated as American Red Cross Month. And it's recognition of the disaster response team that we have here in Westchester County and Fairfield County, in those areas, the Metro New York chapter. Let me just give you a little information about what the American Red Cross did, and then we're going to invite the CEO for our area, Stephanie Dunn Ashley, to join us here. Last year, the American Red Cross Metro New York North chapter, that's us, provided emergency assistance following more than 100 disasters in Westchester County. So far in 2022, the American Red Cross Metro New York North chapter provided emergency assistance following nearly 25 incidents in Westchester. There was a recent large fire in New Rochelle on February 14th. There was a fire in Pelham on February 19th. And so many of these fires, as well as the floods like Ida back on the 1st of September and other disasters impacting Westchester County residents, it's the Red Cross volunteers that rush to the scene to deliver urgent relief to their neighbors coping with loss and trauma. The assistance they provide ensures emergency lodging, food, relief supplies, and financial assistance for other basic needs. They also offer health assistance like securing lost prescription medication, emotional support, and help with the next steps in recovery. Red Cross volunteers help on the scene and behind the scenes to coordinate the provision of these services. We're joined in the room today by some attendees. Desiree Ramos-Rayner is with us. We have Maria Anguiano. I hope I pronounce these names properly. If I don't, I apologize. Andrew Sindel is with us today, and Tess Scheel is with us today, and most importantly, we have with us today Stephanie Dunn Ashley, who's the CEO. So if Stephanie will come up, share some thoughts, and then we have a presentation for you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the introduction and obviously the recommendation of Red Cross Month, but also to thank you to honoring and acknowledging our volunteers. So, as Executive Director Latimer has said, it is Red Cross Month, and we're delighted to be here. We're delighted to share this month with our volunteers who make up 90% of our workforce base. So if you're looking to be a volunteer, please visit us at redcross.org. I would love to have more residents here become volunteers, and actually commend you for the amount of blood drives that are held in Westchester County. I believe they are almost weekly, and that is an incredible feat because we are in a shortage, as you know, across the nation for blood, and we do appreciate all of the people who go out and give blood on a daily or weekly basis. In addition to delivering comfort and care after disasters, we also take care of preparing people in advance. We install smoke alarms, and we install them for free with our Sound the Alarm campaign, which will happen in May. We teach emergency preparedness to kids and adults from preschool on up, and we offer CPR, first aid, and water safety classes. And you too can visit redcross.org to learn more about that. So I would like to say thank you to the 90% of our workforce base, our volunteers that are with us today, and I would like to also welcome you and up to this podium and to receive the proclamation with me today.
So invite our friends in the room. Please come up here and stand to Stephanie's right. And we have two proclamations to present. Now, the good news here is that I don't have my reading glasses with me, so I'm not going to read all of this language. But this one recognizes March as American Red Cross Month in Westchester County and thanks the volunteers for your services. That is the first proclamation. And then there's a second proclamation. We had little notes on what these were. But this is to recognize the American Red Cross Disaster Response Team during the month of March. As we mentioned, the number of different disasters. We've had 2 major fires in New Pelham we've identified, and the flooding from Hurricane Ida, which is 6 months ago now, but was very devastating in this area. So, Stephanie, on behalf of a grateful county, we want to recognize the American Red Cross. We'll probably do some picture taking slightly after this, but thank you very much. We hope they have a place of honor to show you how much we appreciate what you've all done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to our friends of the American Red Cross for their voluntary service. We have just a couple more points that we want to highlight before we take any questions from the press. We're obviously dealing with the worldwide outrage over Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine. A week ago, we mentioned how we proclaimed a day of prayer, both in Westchester County and the city of Yonkers, and how we met a number of elected officials, Ken, myself, and others, at St. Michael the Archangel Ukraine Church in Yonkers a week ago to worship with the congregation. There have been some questions about what we can do as local governments in this area. Most of the things that are available to us are relatively symbolic gestures, things that we would collect resources to give for the refugees who are fleeing into Poland, Hungary, and elsewhere, and then also to try to add to whatever restrictions we can make in terms of some of these services that are happening in the West that benefit Russian interests. European nations, as well as the United States and Canada, have issued sweeping prohibitions on Russian aircraft in their skies ever since the invasion of Ukraine. And it's part of a package of measures that are designed to isolate Russia's aviation industry. There's a host of things to deal with many other of the different elements of Russian economics outside of the country, and you follow those on the national news. I won't repeat them here. But it is the federal government which controls, through the FAA, the skies above Westchester County, even though we own an airport which really provides ground services. These decisions are made by the federal government of the United States in concert with other sovereign nations in the West, and you mentioned Canada and Europe, blocking Russian passenger and cargo airlines is fairly straightforward. Dealing with private jets owned and registered by various trusts and corporations are more difficult, and many times the efforts are made to hide the actual ownership of one of these airlines or flights. So the FAA has said on a number of occasions they're using their staff, multiple federal agencies working to enforce the airspace restrictions. Now, we've seen some tweets that have gone out, one prominent one in the last day or two, which talked about why don't we intercept a plane which is owned by a Russian oligarch. We investigated the particular source of that tweet. The claim of that was made by that tweet, and wherever it traces back to the individual involved in that particular private aircraft is a U.S. Ukrainian citizen. He holds dual citizenship, and yes, he has a private airplane that did land in Westchester. Under no circumstances could we stop it from landing nor restrict it from its takeoff. Those are the rules that are set in place by the federal government. However, this particular case was not a Russian oligarch, but news travels fast on the internet without a means of checking it, and people become convinced of something that there's true because they've read it on the internet, and of course it takes an infinite amount of time to have the truth catch up to whatever the original impression was. So we just want to be clear that our airport operations team working 24/7, we're trying to proactively handle all operations at the airport. Any of these irregular situations, you can address it to us in a direct situation. We have a paid tracking software system that provides us with real-time information for the event of additional safety or security measures that are needed. The system is also capable of tracking certain aircraft tail numbers to alert us when it is filed with an FAA flight plan. And our standard operating emergency notification procedures, we would notify in this chain of command to the FAA. But again, as we had when we talked about an issue last summer that involved the county airport, it is the federal government that controls certain transactions at the airport. It is not County of Westchester. It is no different than expecting the County of Westchester to interdict a rail train that is coming through Westchester County on either Metro North or Amtrak tracks bound for another location, or to intercept someone on an interstate highway unless they were breaking a law that is enforced by the county. And even in those cases, it's the state police that enforces speed limits on the interstate highways. So as agitated as this moment is, and as angry as we all are over the Russian intervention and death that they've been dealing in Ukraine, we have to be clear about what the county government can and can't do. And we are trying to track what's happening at the airport along with other things that might represent a reasonable response at the airport. Any other questions on that can be directed to us at 995-2900, and we'll try to track down any information that's necessary to you. We also want to mention that we do have a joyous activity that's planned for tomorrow, and that is in keeping with our series of recognition of various ethnic groups in Westchester County. We will be celebrating Irish Heritage Month in Westchester County tomorrow, Tuesday, March 8th, by the raising of the Irish flag at 5:30. We'll be doing that at Kensico Dam Plaza. You may recall we did the same thing in the month of October for Italian Heritage Month. Now, not just because those are my two heritages, but we have made an effort to try to recognize in the month of February Black History. We recognize this month, and we'll have other comments about Women's History Month. We've recognized by raising the flag of other countries, Albania. We've done it certainly to recognize our Asian population, our Mexican population, and a host of other different ethnicities. The month of March, it is time to recognize Irish heritage. Of course, the Feast of St. Patrick, which comes on March 17th, is a great secular holiday here in the United States, much more of a religious holiday in Ireland, and there'll be lots of different events and parades all across the county. We understand that all of the parades are back on schedule. The ones that were canceled in 2020 and 2021 will now be held in 2022, and prominent ones are held in Sleepy Hollow, in Eastchester, in White Plains, in Mamaroneck on behalf of the Sound Shore, and on McLean Avenue in Yonkers, which is probably the greatest concentration of the Irish American population in Westchester County. There'll be more of those coming, but we invite you to either come to Kensico Dam Plaza tomorrow, 5:30, for the raising of the Irish flag. And then also you can look at it on Facebook, facebook.com/WestchesterGov, and you'll be able to see the ceremony if you want to do it from the comfort of your own home. But we wish all of the best wishes to our friends and neighbors of Irish American descent as they celebrate during this month. I also want to point out that a week from tomorrow is Village Election Day. Now, village elections apply in a small portion of Westchester County communities. Cities do not have villages as part of them, and many of our towns are incorporated without villages as part of them. But where we do have village elections, some of them are competitive elections in the village of Portchester, in the village of Tuckahoe, in the village of Buchanan, and then there are other elections which may not have two competing slates, but there's always the capacity for write-ins in other communities. So if you live in one of those villages that I mentioned, or in Bronxville, in Pelham Manor, in Hastings-on-Hudson, there's a few others, Elmsford, that will have village elections. Mark your calendar. A week from tomorrow, Tuesday, March 15th, is Village Election Day, and we don't want you to miss it. There's always a series of elections that happen. There are days where we vote for fire commissioners in some districts. Schools in May is generally a standard voting day. There'll be primaries in June in the major political parties, and of course in November. But these are your opportunities to express your opinion. And when you look at what's happening half a world away in Russia and the actions that their government is implementing, whatever you might think of the American system, you know it's not perfect. It could always be better. It may be that the people that you like are not in power in a particular area or nationwide, but that opportunity to express your opinion is there. In Russia, as we speak now, those who are protesting in the streets are being rounded up and face 15 years of imprisonment for expressing their opinion. Those who write in the press and they try to describe what happens as a war, an aggressive war by Russia, they're liable to be rounded up and put into jail for speaking the truth. And whatever you may think of the American system, we certainly have free speech and free right of assembly as long as we don't damage property or hurt other individuals. So these are some of the things that we cherish, and part of that is the voting process, which will come on Tuesday, March 15th in selected villages. Let me check with Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications. Do we have questions, Catherine?
We do. We have one question from Martin Wilbur from the Examiner. He asks, on Saturday, there was a rather sharp one-day increase in COVID-19 cases and infection rate, according to the state tracker. Do you believe this could be a one-day blip, or are there concerns as the restrictions are relaxed, there will be some increases in infections over time?
Well, we're looking at what happens now in the coming next few days. We did see a sharp uptick in one day. We were up about a 3% infection rate on about 5,700 tests, and that was a higher number than we would have expected to see. In the two prior days, our infection rate was under 1.5%, so it was a much more normal downshift. In order to see a trend, we have to look at multiple number of days, and probably over 2 weeks, 3 weeks perhaps. So we're going to monitor to see if what we saw was a blip or there was some sort of an increased situation. And you never know what can create a blip. Sometimes, and you're just theorizing now, when you have relatively small numbers of infections, you could have a cluster of people infected and they all test at the same time and they all wind up positive, and that gives you a higher percentage for that day, but it's not necessarily carried over into another day. So we'll have to see what happens. We don't believe that we're seeing now and some upswing in one day, but anything is possible, and certainly by the time we meet next week, if that upswing is part of something consistent, then we'll report that and give you the accurate information that we have. Any other questions from the press? Well, anybody who is watching from the press and wants to follow up on our feed, they're welcome to call Catherine Chaffee at 995-2932, and we'll be happy to try to address those issues or connect you to the mayor or to the CEO of the American Red Cross Metro North chapter. In the meantime, we thank you very much for watching. We hope you have a pleasant day and a safe day. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. We'll see you next week at the same time at 2 o'clock for next week's update. Take care now.